Boom! This is supposed to be Big Bang, by the way. Anyways, warning. For this video to be truly unbiased and fair, it won't be referencing any specific religion, be it Islam, Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, Societism, or delusionism. That's it. Let's clearly state the general and globally acceptable definition of what God is. That is, a necessary thing that created everything. This is the basic, agreeable definition of God across the world and general beliefs. So now, the question follows. Do you believe that the universe had the necessary thing to come to existence? Meaning, let's make the argument clear. For you to exist here today, did you need your mom to give birth to you? The answer is yes. Hopefully, don't confuse your mom and dad. I get that some of you might have a dad with a huge belly and you're wondering when the baby will pop out. But that's not possible, which is biologically different. Anyways, therefore your mom becomes a necessary thing for you to exist. Following this argument, if you accept the fact that the universe at the beginning, meaning that it's finite, with its energy and matter as scientifically proven today, then whatever the necessary cause is for the universe to exist is, by definition, what is called God. That's it. God exists. Now, I know what some hardcore atheists will say. Well, that's only assuming the universe is finite, or that they will try to come up with new theories such as possibility of multiverse, that there was always something else, which both are not really an argument. The response to the first claim is that the universe is finite. Reason being, to claim that something isn't finite is the same as claiming that it's infinite. And that is simply not true, because of two reasons. One is the infinity is not something that science can observe or measure. Therefore, you can't prove its existence within the universe, unless you can provide a logical reasoning. Though, reason number two also defeats that reasoning due to the more plausible evidences provided by the Big Bang Theory. So people who make this claim are actually rejecting their scientific evidences and instead choosing to believe in an idea with no proven basis. That, by definition, is blind faith. The second claim's response is that it's fine. It doesn't really matter if you want to believe in multiverse or aliens that created the universe, because the argument is, whatever was in the beginning that caused everything that exists is by definition called God. So this isn't a claim either against the existence of an origin. Now we should pause here for a sec, because the matter of fact is, we know that no one will actually reject that everything had an origin and there must be an ultimate origin for a reality and universe, etc. That's basic logic. No reasonable person will say otherwise. Though we should be also aware that this is the actual definition of God, origin of origins. So some people who are watching probably don't want to admit the existence of an origin because we've defined it as God. However, that's the issue. God isn't a white-bearded old man sitting on the clouds or an imaginary story taught as a tale. Those who think this way, with all due respect, are delusional. That's why we should go with definitions and not by our own interpretations. And the definition is very clear: a necessary thing that created everything. Question: if God is the one who created everything, then who created God? This question usually stems from a misunderstanding about the definition of God, because what we define as God is the starting point for all that exists, because if there is no starting point, there can be no today. If your mom didn't exist, you couldn't exist either. If your grandma didn't exist, you again wouldn't exist. If we infinitely go back to who came from who, we will never arrive to the present. Logically, for us to exist today, we need to have a starting point for all of our origins, and that by definition is called God, a necessary thing that is eternal. Question: fine, let's accept that there is a God by definition. Doesn't mean that it's also conscious? The answer is, it depends on how you define consciousness. Because even in science, consciousness isn't something that is fully defined. If it's defined as a general awareness of oneself and surroundings, then yes, God is conscious in that sense. Reason being that science has a concept known as the hard problem of consciousness. It refers to the challenge of explaining why and how physical processes in the brain give rise to subjective experiences. And this being the reason why science can't observe and define consciousness fully. Take gravity, for example. We don't directly detect it with our five senses. However, we can define and observe how it works and apply the same principle of law to other planets in the universe. Consciousness, on the other hand, can't be observed by science for this very reason, as it is not a purely physical phenomenon. For example, humans can go through the same situations, but our experiences processed through consciousness will be interpreted differently and will never be exactly the same. Like if two people ate the same slice of an apple, one might find it, delicious, but he can never truly grasp how the other person experienced from that exact same bite. So the reality reality of consciousness is generally explained simply as being aware of oneself and surroundings. It's not something solely physical, one reason being that it's subjective in nature, and two being that no energy, matter, atoms, neurons, or any other physical objects possess the attributes of consciousness to produce the kind of consciousness that humans have. Some might call this a soul, and others might refer to as consciousness. Both can be legitimate depending on the definition. The main point is, if humans possess the consciousness, then the origin that created them must have it as well. So whether our consciousness is fully physical or not physical, it both requires a necessary thing that has the attribute to create them. Another proof of consciousness of God and why it must possess a will is because things in the universe are different from one another. From matter to energy to different laws of nature, which implies the necessity of choice, because before the universe, there were no laws of creation, such as the laws of motion, gravitation, thermodynamics, cause and effect. These laws and objects around us like trees, rocks, stars, water, with different shapes, sizes, and color, require a choice to exist, because without choice, everything would be the same. We won't have any distinct object from one another. And just so we're all on the same page, this isn't a design argument. Rather, it's to show that laws and the information within the objects require intelligence in order for them to possess the attributes that allow them to function after they begin to exist. Question: can there be multiple gods? Why is it limited to one, and is it limited to one? The answer is yes. God's nature can only be one for its possible existence. Why? Well, even if, for the sake of the argument, we assume multiple origins, then what we'll have is utter chaos. It's like driving a car with two drivers, or having multiple CEOs in a company with equal power. The real issue arises from each having its own consciousness, because with consciousness comes the free will. If all the origins possess free will as equal, then there can be either of two scenarios. First is the free will equal and same in nature. Second is the free will equal, but different in nature. Second scenario is basically not possible to exist. If something's nature of will is different but equal in power, one god or origin can choose to create a tree in grain and the other can choose red. One can create Earth round, the other in cube. One can create the Milky Way and the other choose not to. So if this was the case, two origins simply would cancel each other out and we wouldn't exist. And the first claim of having the equal free will and nature will, meaning that all the origins wants the same thing always and all the time, then this argument is a refutation to itself, because we can't separate two things from one another if there is no distinction we can identify. So the first claim doesn't really prove or disprove anything. This argument might seem subjective at first. However, according to this claim, accepting one necessary source doesn't require us to accept the other copy-paste sources, because for the universe to exist, there's one necessary origin needed. Exact other same origins are not necessary for existence, and so we don't have any reason to believe it. Another argument for multi-god existence is, what if the gods have also differences in free will? Well, that's even easier to refute, because then whoever has the highest free will and power becomes the authority over the others, so the existence of God still includes a single origin. That's it. Before ending this video, we'll clearly state one last time the definition of God: a necessary thing that created everything and has the attributes of necessarily eternal, necessary consciousness, and necessary oneness. All that has been said. Do you think we're done? No. Of course not. The evidences are just not ending. Though this will be the last touch on our beautiful brain on the existence of God. That is, we're naturally created in a way that we are inclined to believe in God. What? What the freak are you on about? Well, this is not me saying it. This is an actual research called Born Believers that has been studied under Oxford University by researchers who are atheists themselves. After their research on kids across 20 different countries like China, Japan, who are born in non-religious families, they've studied through evidences that kids do in fact show signs of believing in a higher power, no matter their background. Then the research concludes with, after humans grow up, our ideas and thoughts change through the society and social life we've grown up in. This has been concluded with that belief in God is actually a part of our brain that we naturally possess. Kinda like we all have rhythm, that the brain naturally catches the pattern when we listen to a melody or singing. Like that, the belief in higher power or purpose is also one of the parts of human brain that we have, which later on in our lives converts the ideas and thoughts that are around the society and social life we grow up in. That's why in our history, there were no civilizations completely disbelieved. Whether it may be monotheistic or pagan religions, people always believed in something. And someone today might claim that religions were created to control people and unite them through deception. And they wouldn't be entirely wrong. There are indeed historical cases where religious leaders controlled the masses in the name of the religion. However, the point remains. The fact that the people believed shows the natural inclination toward belief. And this inclination comes from the very origin that created us. So if God exists, and He gave us a natural inclination to believe in Him, then that gives birth to a necessary guidance. But this isn't a topic about which religion is true and which are false. The point of this video is, yeah, God exists.